You know that moment when your entire world shifts in just 5 words? When someone you trusted completely looks you dead in the eye and destroys everything you've built? Well, let me tell you about the day my own brother fired me from the company I helped create. Picture this. It's a Tuesday morning in downtown Chicago, the Harper Freight Company boardroom, 23rd floor, floor-to-ceiling windows, overlooking Lake Michigan. I'm sitting at that polished mahogany table I've sat at for 15 years, going through quarterly logistics reports like I do every month. Same coffee, same seat, same routine. But today feels different. There's this tension in the air, like when you can smell rain coming before the storm hits. The other board members are avoiding eye contact, shuffling papers nervously. And then my brother Cole walks in. Now, let me paint you a picture of Cole. He's always been the golden child. Perfect smile, perfect suit, perfect everything. The kind of guy who could sell ice to penguins and make them thank him for it. He's got this way of commanding a room just by existing, and today he's practically glowing with confidence. He doesn't sit down. Instead, he stands at the head of the table, hands clasped behind his back, like he's about to deliver the State of the Union. The silence stretches on, for what feels like forever. You could hear a pin drop. "Ladies and gentlemen," Cole begins, his voice smooth as silk, "I have an important announcement to make." He pauses, letting his words hang in the air. "As of this morning, I've been appointed as the new Chief Executive Officer of Harper Freight Company." My stomach drops. CEO, but I'm the one who's been running operations. I'm the one who built our entire supply chain network. I'm the one who secured our biggest contracts. How is this even possible? But Cole isn't finished. Oh no, he's just getting started. He turns to look at me directly, and there's something in his eyes I've never seen before. Something cold. Something calculated. "Ava," he says, and my name sounds foreign coming from his mouth. "Your services are no longer required. Your services are no longer required." 5 words. That's all it took to shatter 15 years of my life. I feel like I'm underwater, like everything is moving in slow motion. The other board members are staring at their hands at the table anywhere but at me. The betrayal hits me like a physical blow. This isn't just my job we're talking about. This is my baby. This company, I didn't just work here. I bled for it. I sacrificed weekends, holidays, relationships. I turned Harper Freight from a small family trucking business into a multi-million-dollar logistics empire. But here's the thing about shock. It has this weird way of making you hyper-aware of everything around you. I can hear the air conditioning humming. I can see dust particles floating in the sunlight streaming through those massive windows. I can smell Cole's expensive cologne, mixed with the leather of these boardroom chairs. And somehow, I find my voice. "Excuse me." It comes out steadier than I feel, which surprises even me. Cole's smile doesn't waver. If anything, it gets wider. "The board has decided to restructure our leadership team. We're moving in a new direction, and frankly, your management style no longer aligns with our vision." My management style. The same management style that increased our revenue by 300% over the past 5 years. The same management style that earned us contracts with Fortune 500 companies. But I don't say any of that. Something inside me stays quiet, stays observant. I stand up slowly, gathering my things with deliberate calm. My hands aren't shaking, which is a miracle, because inside I'm falling apart. 15 years. 15 years of 12-hour days of missed dinners, of putting this company before everything else in my life. As I'm walking toward the door, my phone buzzes. It's a text from Mia, my assistant, and honestly, my closest friend at the company. "Emergency coffee meeting. Now. Something's wrong." I slip out of the boardroom with as much dignity as I can manage, but my mind is racing. How long has Cole been planning this? How long has he been working behind the scenes to push me out? And more importantly, what am I going to do about it? 20 minutes later, I'm sitting across from Mia at our usual spot, this little cafe called Grind that's tucked between two office buildings, about 3 blocks from Harbor Freight. Mia takes one look at my face and immediately knows something's catastrophically wrong. "What happened?" she asks, leaning forward with concern written all over her features. Mia's been with me for 8 years. She's seen me through every crisis, every late night, every impossible deadline. She knows me better than my own family does, apparently. I take a deep breath. Here goes nothing. Cole was just appointed CEO, I say, watching her expression change from confusion to disbelief. And he fired me. The color drains from her face. He what? Your services are no longer required, I repeat using Cole's exact words. They taste bitter in my mouth. That's what he said, in front of the entire board, like I was some temp they were letting go. Mia stares at me for a long moment, processing this information. Then she says something that surprises me. "What about the folder?" The folder. Of course she remembers the folder. See, here's what nobody in that boardroom knew. For the past 3 years, I've been quietly, methodically preparing for exactly this scenario. Not because I expected my own brother to betray me, but because I learned a long time ago that in business, you always need a backup plan. I reach into my bag and pull out a leather portfolio. It's understated, professional looking. Nothing that would draw attention. But inside this folder is 3 years worth of documentation contracts and legal preparations that are about to turn Cole's victory into his worst nightmare. I set it on the table between us, and Mia's eyes widen slightly. She knows what this is. We've talked about it before, hypothetically. "You actually did it," she whispers. 3 years ago, you asked me a question." I tell her, my voice still unnaturally calm. "You said, what would happen if they ever tried to push you out? Remember?" She nods slowly. "Well, I spent the next 3 years making sure I'd never have to find out the hard way." I open the folder just enough for her to see the documents inside. Mia Meet AH Solutions LLC, legally incorporated, fully operational, and the actual contracting entity for 60% of what Harbor Freight thinks are their clients. The look on her face is priceless. It's shock, admiration, and just a little bit of fear all rolled into one. "Ava, are you telling me that..." "I'm telling you that Cole just fired the person who actually owns the contracts that keep this company afloat." I close the folder and lean back in my chair. "And he has absolutely no idea." For the first time since walking out of that boardroom, I allow myself a small smile. Because here's what Cole doesn't understand about me. I didn't get where I am by being naive. I got here by being prepared for everything, including family betrayal. The game has changed, and it's my move. And you want to know how we got here? How my own brother could look me in the eye and destroy everything I built? Let me take you back to the beginning, because this story didn't start today. It started 15 years ago when I was fresh out of college with a business degree and stars in my eyes. Picture a 22-year-old version of me walking into Harbor Freight for the first time. It wasn't the gleaming corporate headquarters you see today. Back then, it was literally 3 trucks, a cramped office, above an auto repair shop, and my dad Benjamin trying to keep the family business from going under. Cole was already there, of course. Fresh out of his MBA program, all charm and big ideas. But here's what nobody talks about. Charm doesn't unload trucks. Charm doesn't negotiate with the suppliers at 4 a.m. Charm doesn't spend weekends in warehouses, making sure shipments get where they need to go. I started in dispatch, literally answering phones and tracking shipments on a dry erase board that took up half the wall. But I saw something that everyone else missed. We weren't just moving boxes from point A to point B. We were the invisible backbone that kept entire supply chains running. And if we could do it better, faster, smarter than anyone else, we could own this market. So, I worked. God, did I work. 16-hour days were normal. I'd get to the office before sunrise and leave after midnight. While Cole was schmoozing potential clients over expensive dinners, I was on the warehouse floor learning every single aspect of our operation from the ground up. By year 2, I'd redesigned our entire routing system, cut delivery times by 30% and costs by 20%. Our client retention rate went from 65% to 92% in 18 months. But when Dad introduced the management team at the annual industry conference, guess who got the spotlight? I'd like you to meet my son Cole, our brilliant strategist who's revolutionizing how we approach client relationships. Me, I was Ava, who handles our day-to-day operations. Day-to-day operations. Like I was some middle manager filing paperwork instead of the person who single-handedly saved the company from bankruptcy. But I told myself it didn't matter. Family business, right? We're all working toward the same goal. Cole handles the front-facing stuff. I handle the backbone. It's a partnership. Except it wasn't. Year 3. I landed our first major corporate contract. Johnson & Associates, a pharmaceutical distributor that needed temperature-controlled shipping across 12 states. It was a $2 million deal that required me to design an entirely new logistics network from scratch. I spent 4 months on that proposal. 4 months of 18-hour days, building relationships with warehouse partners, negotiating with specialty carriers, creating contingency plans for everything from weather delays to equipment failures. The night before the presentation, I was still fine-tuning details at midnight when Cole stopped by my office. "Great work on this," he said, looking over my shoulder at the presentation deck. "Really impressive stuff." I smiled, thinking finally some recognition from my brother. The next morning, Cole walked into that boardroom and presented my entire proposal as his own vision for the company's future. Every innovation, every strategic partnership, every cost-saving measure I developed. He didn't mention my name once during the hour-long presentation. We got the contract. It was a game-changer for Harbor Freight. And at the celebration dinner that night, Cole gave a speech about his breakthrough approach to integrated logistics management. I sat at that table watching my brother take credit for months of my life, and something inside me broke. Not dramatically, not with tears or shouting, just a quiet, cold realization that this was never going to change. That was the night I started planning. See, the thing about being invisible for so long is that you learn to move through the world without being noticed. You learn to observe, to document, to prepare, and most importantly, you learn that if you want something done right, you better have a backup plan. So I started small. Every client meeting I attended, every contract, I negotiated every partnership I developed, I began documenting who the real decision makers were. Not the executives who signed the paperwork, but the operations managers who actually made the day-to-day calls about which logistics company to use. I built relationships. Real relationships, not Cole's surface-level networking. I knew the names of warehouse supervisors' kids. I remembered which plant managers preferred phone calls versus emails. I showed up when shipments went wrong at 2 a.m. and fixed problems instead of just apologizing for them. By year 7, something interesting had happened. Our biggest clients weren't really clients of Harbor Freight anymore. They were clients of me. They'd call my direct line when they had problems. They'd ask specifically for me to handle their accounts. When competitors tried to poach them, they'd say things like, "We're not leaving as long as Ava's running our logistics." That's when I had a conversation with Mia that changed everything. It was a Friday night, probably around 9 p.m. We were the only ones left in the office, which had become pretty normal by then. She looked up from her computer and said something that hit me like a lightning bolt. "You know what's crazy?" she said. "If you ever left this place, half our clients would probably follow you." I stopped what I was doing and really looked at her. Mia had been my assistant for 3 years at that point, but she was so much more than that. She understood the business almost as well as I did. She saw the relationships I'd built, the systems I'd created, the trust I'd earned. "What do you mean?" I asked. "I mean your contracts aren't really with Harbor Freight. They're with you. Johnson & Associates calls and asks for Ava Harper. Midwest Manufacturing specifically requests you for all their shipping coordination. Even the new accounts, they're not choosing Harbor Freight because of the company brand. They're choosing us because they trust you." She was right. And that's when the seed of an idea started growing. What would happen, I asked her, if they ever tried to push me out? Mia leaned back in her chair thinking, honestly, the company would probably lose 60% of its revenue within 6 months. Maybe more. 60%. That number stuck with me. Number stuck. The next Monday, I did something that would either save my career or destroy it. I made an appointment with Grace Morrison, the best corporate attorney in Chicago. I told her I needed to discuss some hypothetical business scenarios. Hypothetically, I said, sitting in her downtown office, if someone wanted to protect themselves from being forced out of a family business they'd built, what would you recommend? Grace smiled. She'd seen this story before. Hypothetically, she said, I'd recommend that person form their own company and start transitioning their most important client relationships to contracts with that new entity. And that's exactly what we did. It took 3 years to do it right. 3 years of careful planning, meticulous legal work, and the most delicate client transitions you can imagine. Mia was with me every step of the way. She helped draft contracts, managed client communications, and kept track of every detail. We called it AH Solutions LLC, simple professional, and technically just my initials, even though everyone would assume it stood for Ava Harper. The beauty of it was that it wasn't deceptive. I wasn't stealing anything. I was simply formalizing what had already become reality. That these clients were working with me, not Harper Freight. The transition was seamless, because it wasn't really a transition at all. When Johnson and Associates needed to renew their contract instead of signing with Harper Freight, they signed with AH Solutions. Harper Freight became the subcontractor. The clients got the same service, the same quality, the same personal attention they'd always received. They just had a different name on their invoices. By the time Cole walked into that boardroom this morning and fired me, AH Solutions held the primary contracts for 63% of what Harper Freight considered their client base. The company my brother just took over, it was basically a shell. All the real value, all the actual business relationships, all the operational expertise that made Harper Freight profitable, it was mine. And the most beautiful part, it was completely legal. Every contract was signed in good faith. Every client chose to work with AH Solutions because they trusted the service they'd been receiving. No one was deceived, no one was cheated, and no one was stolen from. I just did what any smart business person does. I protected myself. So when Cole fired me today, he thought he was eliminating his competition for control of the family business. What he actually did was hand me the keys to his kingdom while keeping the castle for himself. The question now isn't what I'm going to do about being fired. The question is what Cole's going to do when he realizes that the company he just took over is about to lose everything that made it valuable. And honestly, I can't wait to find out. They say revenge is a dish best served cold, but let me tell you something. Justice served at exactly the right temperature is even better. It's 6 a.m. the next morning, and I'm standing in my office for what I know will be the last time as an employee of Harper Freight. The building is empty quiet, except for the hum of fluorescent lights and the distant rumble of early morning traffic. There's something almost peaceful about it. I've got 3 cardboard boxes lined up on my desk. 15 years of my professional life needs to fit into 3 boxes. It's funny how little space your entire career actually takes up when you strip away all the company property. As I'm packing up my desk, I notice things I'd forgotten were there. A photo from our first $1 million month. Me and the warehouse team celebrating with pizza and cheap champagne. A coffee mug that says, World's Okayest Logistics Coordinator that Mia gave me as a joke 3 years ago. A small cactus plant that somehow survived despite my complete inability to remember to water it. Each item tells a story. Each one represents years of late nights, early mornings, and weekends sacrificed for a company that just threw me away like yesterday's newspaper. But here's the thing. I'm not sad. I'm not angry. I'm focused. My phone buzzes. 7:15 a.m. Right on schedule. Ava Harper. I answer, even though I can see it's Tom Chen from Johnson and Associates calling. Ava, thank God you picked up, Tom says, and I can hear the stress in his voice. We just got the strangest call from some guy named Cole at Harper Freight. He said he's taking over our account personally and wants to schedule a meeting to discuss our contract terms. I set down the picture frame I was wrapping and give Tom my full attention. What did you tell him? That's what I'm calling about. I pulled our contract to refresh myself on the details, and according to our paperwork, our agreement is with AH Solutions, not Harper Freight. Cole seemed really confused when I mentioned that. He kept insisting that Harper Freight was our primary contractor. I smile. The first domino falls exactly as planned. Tom, you're absolutely right. Your contract has been with AH Solutions for the past 18 months. Harper Freight is our subcontracting partner for certain services, but AH Solutions is your primary logistics provider. There's a pause on the other end. So if there are changes happening at Harper Freight that doesn't affect our service, right? Not at all. Your account management, your dedicated support team, your service quality. Nothing changes from your perspective. I can practically hear the relief in his voice. Perfect. That's exactly what I wanted to hear. Cole mentioned something about needing to renegotiate terms, but honestly, we're completely satisfied with our current arrangement. After I hang up my phone, immediately rings again. Sarah Mitchell from Midwest Manufacturing, then David Rodriguez from Great Lakes Distribution, then Jennifer Wong from Premium Pharmaceuticals. One by one, my clients are calling with the same story. Cole, or someone from his new management team, reached out to them about contract renewals and service changes. And one by one, they're discovering that their contracts aren't with Harper Freight at all. By 8:30, I've fielded 12 calls from confused clients and 4 calls from suppliers who received similar contact from Harper Freight about accounts they don't actually control. My phone rings again. This time it's Cole. I let it ring 3 times before answering. Not because I'm playing games, but because I want to make sure I'm completely composed when I take this call. Hello, Cole. Oh, Ava, what the hell is going on? His voice is tight controlled, but I can hear the panic underneath. I've spent the morning calling our biggest clients, and half of them are telling me their contracts are with some company called AH Solutions. What is AH Solutions? I finished taping up the second box before responding. AH Solutions is a logistics consulting firm that specializes in supply chain optimization. Don't play word games with me, Ava. Are you telling me that you've been running some kind of side business using Harper Freight resources? I'm telling you that AH Solutions is a completely independent company that provides logistics services to various clients. Some of those services are fulfilled through partnerships with other logistics providers. The silence on the other end stretches for nearly 10 seconds. I can picture Cole in his new corner office, probably pacing behind Dad's old desk, trying to process what I'm saying. You took our clients, he finally says. I didn't take anything, Cole. These companies chose to contract with AH Solutions because they valued the service they were receiving. When those contracts came up for renewal, they signed with the entity that was actually providing their account management. This is corporate theft, Ava. I'll have lawyers all over you by the end of the day. I sit down in my chair one last time, looking out the window at the city skyline. You should definitely have your lawyers review those contracts, Cole. I think you'll find that everything was handled completely above board. AH Solutions didn't steal anything from Harper Freight. We simply formalized existing business relationships. Existing business relationships that you developed while working for us. Business relationships that I developed, yes. The question you need to ask yourself is whether those relationships were with me personally or with Harper Freight as a company. Another long pause. I can hear him breathing heavily. What do you want, Ava? I don't want anything from you, Cole. You fired me. Remember, your exact words were, your services are no longer required. Well, you're right. Harper Freight no longer requires my services. But fortunately, my clients still do. I hang up before he can respond. 20 minutes later, Mia walks into my office carrying her own cardboard box and a coffee for each of us. "So," she says, setting my coffee on the desk, "I just had a very interesting conversation with HR about my resignation." I look up at her. "You resigned." "Effective immediately." She grins. "Apparently, when you fire the person who actually runs the company, some of us decide we'd rather work for that person directly, instead of watching the place fall apart." "Mia, you don't have to do this. I mean, I hope AH Solutions will be successful, but there's no guarantee. Harper Freight is stable, it's established." She laughs. "Ava, I've watched you build this business from the ground up. I've seen you save this company more times than I can count. I've seen you turn impossible situations into success stories. If you think I'm going to stick around to watch Cole try to figure out how to do your job, you're crazy." We work in comfortable silence for a while, packing up our offices. Around 10 a.m., my phone rings again. This time, it's Jordan Mills, Harper Freight's head of operations. Jordan's good people, one of the few employees who really understands the nuts and bolts of what makes this company run. "Ava," he says, and his voice is carefully neutral. "I heard about yesterday. I wanted to call and say that it's been a privilege working with you." "Thanks, Jordan. That means a lot. Can I ask you something, and please feel free to tell me it's none of my business." "Shoot. Are you planning to continue in logistics? Because I have to tell you Cole called an all-hands meeting this morning, and I'm not sure he fully grasps the operational complexity of what you've been managing." I choose my words carefully. Jordan is still a Harper Freight employee, and I'm not trying to poach anyone, but I also know that Jordan is smart enough to read between the lines. "I'm exploring my options. AH Solutions has some exciting opportunities ahead." "Would those opportunities potentially include expanding your operations team?" "They might. And hypothetically, if someone with extensive knowledge of current client relationships and operational procedures were interested in those opportunities, would that be something worth discussing?" I smile. Jordan has always been diplomatic. Hypothetically, I think AH Solutions would be very interested in talking to qualified candidates who share our commitment to client service excellence. I'll keep that in mind. And, Ava, whatever you do next, you're going to be great at it. After I hang up, Mia looks at me with raised eyebrows. "Was that Jordan hinting about jumping ship?" "That was Jordan being smart enough to recognize that this company is about to implode and positioning himself accordingly." By 11 a.m., we're loading our boxes into my car. As we're walking out of the building, I take one last look back at the Harper Freight logo on the glass doors. 23 floors of office space, state-of-the-art facilities, and a corporate image that took decades to build. But here's what Cole doesn't understand. Yet, a logistics company isn't about buildings, or logos, or fancy boardrooms. It's about relationships, trust, and the ability to solve problems when things go wrong at 3 in the morning. He can have the building, he can have the corporate structure, he can have Dad's old office and the title of CEO. I've got something better, I've got the business. As we drive away, my phone rings again. It's Grace Morrison, my attorney. "Ava, I've been getting some interesting calls this morning. It seems Harper Freight's legal team is very concerned about something. They want to meet with us to discuss the AH Solutions contracts." "What did you tell them?" "I told them I'd be happy to schedule a meeting, but they should probably review the documentation first so they understand what we're discussing. I also mentioned that all contracts were filed appropriately with the state and are completely above board." "And what was their response to that?" Grace chuckles. "I think the exact phrase was, 'We'll be in touch.' But between you and me, I don't think they're going to find any legal issues with what we've done. You were very careful to do everything by the book." As I hang up, Mia looks over at me from the passenger seat. "So, what happens now?" I think about that question as we drive through downtown Chicago, past all the corporate headquarters and business districts where I've spent so many years building relationships and solving problems. Now, we find out if 3 years of planning was enough time to build something that can stand on its own. But honestly, I'm not worried. See, Cole made a fundamental mistake this morning. He assumed that Harper Freight was the source of value in our business relationship. He thought the clients, the contracts, the revenue streams belonged to the company. What he's about to learn is that in the logistics business, relationships aren't transferable. Trust isn't something you inherit when you get promoted, and competence isn't something that comes with a job title. He wanted to be CEO, fine. Let him be CEO of whatever's left after the dust settles. Me, I'm going to go build something new, something better, something that's actually mine. And I'm going to do it with the best people, the best clients, and 15 years of experience that no one can take away from me. The game is just getting started. There's something surreal about starting over at 37. One day, you're sitting in a corner office on the 23rd floor, and the next day, you're setting up folding tables in a strip mall office space between a tax preparation service and a nail salon. Welcome to day one of Solutions as an independent company. The office space I found is nothing special. 2,000 square feet in Schaumburg, about 20 minutes from downtown. Gray carpet, fluorescent lighting, and windows that look out onto a parking lot. But it's mine. Every square foot of it is mine, and nobody can fire me from it. It's 7 a.m., and I'm standing in the middle of this empty space with 8 folding tables, 16 folding chairs, and enough determination to power a small city. Maya walks in carrying a box of office supplies and 2 large coffees. Well, she says, looking around at our new headquarters, it's not exactly the Harper Freight executive suite. No, I agree. It's better. It's honest. By 8:30, we've got a basic setup running. 2 tables pushed together for our main work area, 1 table for our makeshift conference room, and the rest arranged as individual workstations. It looks like a campaign headquarters or a startup garage, which I guess is exactly what it is. At 9 a.m. sharp, Jordan walks through the door carrying his laptop bag and a small box of personal items. Behind him are 6 other people I recognize from Harper Freight's operations team. Marcus Thompson from Client Services, Lisa Chen from Warehouse Coordination, David Park from Supplier Relations, Kelly Martinez from Route Planning, Mike Johnson from Quality Control, and Sarah Williams from Account Management. I stare at them in disbelief. What is this? Jordan grins. This is the Solutions operations team reporting for duty. You all quit Harper Freight. We all tendered our resignations yesterday afternoon, Sarah says. Funny thing is, Cole didn't seem particularly surprised. I think he knew this was coming. Marcus steps forward. Ava, we've all worked with you for years. We know who actually runs the operations that make this business successful. When we heard you were starting your own company, the choice was pretty obvious. I look around at these 7 people who just walked away from stable jobs to join my crazy experiment, and I feel something I haven't felt in years. Hope. I need to be completely honest with you, I tell them. I have no idea if this is going to work. I have contracts, I have clients, I have relationships, but I don't have infrastructure. I don't have warehouses. I don't have trucks. I'm basically asking you to help me build an airplane while we're flying it. Kelly laughs. Ava, that's what we've been doing at Harper Freight for the past 5 years. At least this time we get to build it the right way. So, by 10 a.m. we've got phone lines set up, computers connected, and our first crisis to handle. Johnson & Associates has a shipment that was supposed to go out this morning, but Harper Freight's dispatch team apparently can't find the paperwork for it. I'm on the phone with Tom Chen, walking him through the situation, when I realize something important. This is exactly where I want to be. Not in a boardroom making strategic decisions, but on the ground solving real problems for real clients. Tom, here's what we're going to do, I tell him. I'm driving down to the Chattanooga warehouse myself. I'll personally oversee the loading and make sure your shipment goes out today. You're going to drive to Tennessee. Tom, you've been our client for 4 years. You trust us to handle your most critical shipments. The least I can do is make sure we don't let you down during this transition. That's how I end up spending my first day as an independent business owner driving a rented truck from Chicago to Chattanooga, Tennessee. It's a 6-hour drive each way, but sometimes you have to show your clients that they matter more than your convenience. The warehouse in Chattanooga has been one of our key partners for 3 years. When I walk into the facility, the warehouse manager, Ray Stevens, takes one look at me and starts laughing. "Let me guess," he says. "Harper Freight called this morning asking about shipments they don't have contracts for." "How did you know?" "Because some kid named Cole spent 20 minutes on the phone trying to convince me that Harper Freight had authority over Johnson & Associates' inventory. I had to explain to him 3 times that our storage and handling agreement is with AH Solutions. Ray helps me personally oversee the loading of Tom's shipment. As we're finishing up, he pulls me aside. "Ava, I don't know what's going on between you and Harper Freight, but I want you to know that as far as we're concerned, nothing changes. You're the one who set up this partnership. You're the one who's been managing it, and you're the one we trust." By the time I drive back to Chicago, it's almost midnight. I'm exhausted, my back hurts from loading boxes, and I probably shouldn't have attempted that drive in one day. But Tom's shipment is on its way to its destination, and AH Solutions handled its first crisis successfully. I pull into the office parking lot and see lights still on inside. When I walk in, I find the entire team still there, working on laptops and talking on phones. "What are you all still doing here?" I ask. Mia looks up from her computer. "Johnson & Associates wasn't the only crisis today. Midwest Manufacturing had a routing issue that we had to solve. Premium Pharmaceuticals needed an emergency temperature-controlled shipment arranged. And Great Lakes Distribution wanted confirmation that their Louisville warehouse partnership was still active." And Jordan grins. "And we handled all of it. Lisa coordinated with the Louisville facility. David arranged backup carriers for the emergency shipment. Kelly redesigned the routing for Midwest. We've been putting out fires all day and we haven't dropped a single ball. I order pizza for everyone, and we work until almost 2 a.m. making sure every client issue is resolved and every shipment is tracked properly. It's exactly like the old days at Harper Freight, except now we're doing it for ourselves." The next morning, I'm barely awake when my phone rings. It's Grace Morrison, and she sounds amused. "Ava, I just got off the phone with Harper Freight's legal team. They want to schedule a meeting." "What kind of meeting?" "The kind where they try to figure out how much trouble they're in. Apparently, Cole held an emergency board meeting yesterday, and when the board actually read through the contracts you've been building, they realized they can't sue you." I sit up straighter. "What do you mean?" "I mean, everything you did was completely legal. You formed an independent company, you negotiated contracts with willing clients, and you fulfilled those contracts using legitimate subcontracting relationships. There's no theft, no fraud, no breach of fiduciary duty. You just outsmarted them." "So, what do they want to meet about?" Grace pauses, and I can hear papers rustling in the background. "Well, here's where it gets interesting. The board apparently spent most of yesterday trying to figure out how much revenue Harper Freight is actually going to lose now that you're gone. The number they came up with scared them." "How scared?" "Scared enough to instruct their legal team to explore whether Harper Freight could subcontract with AH Solutions to maintain client relationships." I almost dropped my phone. "They want to hire us." It gets better. From what I understand, the board is furious with Cole for creating this situation. Apparently, your father, Benjamin, made some calls yesterday to major clients, and the feedback he got was that these companies value their relationship with you personally, not with Harper Freight as an entity. I'm quiet for a moment, processing this information. What kind of subcontracting are they talking about? A comprehensive service agreement. Harper Freight would essentially become your fulfillment partner instead of the other way around. They handle the physical infrastructure, trucks, warehouses, equipment. AH Solutions handles client relationships, account management, and operational coordination. Pro-E and the financials. They're proposing a 5-year exclusive partnership with a 70-30 revenue split in your favor. I sit there in stunned silence. 3 days ago, Cole fired me and thought he was taking over the family business. Now, Harbor Freight wants to pay me to basically run the same operations I was running before, except as an independent contractor with a much larger share of the profits. Grace, are you telling me that by firing me, Cole accidentally negotiated the best deal of my career? She laughs. That's exactly what I'm telling you. The board realizes that Harbor Freight without you is just an expensive trucking company. But Solutions without Harbor Freight's infrastructure would be limited in how much you could grow. They need you more than you need them, but you could both benefit from a partnership. After I hang up with Grace, I call the team together for an impromptu meeting in our little strip mall conference room. I just got some interesting news, I tell them. Harbor Freight wants to subcontract with us. Jordan raises his eyebrows. Come again. The board wants to offer us a 5-year partnership deal. Harbor Freight handles fulfillment. We handle client relationships and operations management. So basically the same thing we were doing before, Marcus says, except now we own the client relationships and get paid properly for the value we create. Exactly. Kelly leans back in her folding chair. What's the catch? The catch is that we'd be working very closely with Cole and he's not exactly thrilled about this turn of events. Sarah speaks up. Ava, can I ask you something? Do you want to take this deal? I think about that question. Do I want to work with Harbor Freight again? Do I want to have to coordinate with Cole? Do I want to be tied to the infrastructure and corporate culture that I just escaped from? You know what? I finally say. I want to build something that's ours. I want to create a company where good work gets recognized, where the people who solve the problems get credit for solving them, and where we don't have to ask permission to do what's right for our clients. The question is whether this partnership helps us build that or holds us back from it. Jordan nods slowly. There's another question too. Can we afford to turn it down? We've got great client relationships, but we need infrastructure to serve them properly. Harbor Freight has the warehouses, the trucks, the distribution network we'd need to build from scratch. He's right, and I know it. Solutions has the brains and the relationships, but Harbor Freight has the muscle. Separately, we're both limited. Together, we could dominate the market. Here's what we're going to do, I tell them. We're going to listen to their offer. We're going to negotiate terms that protect our independence and recognize our value. And we're going to make sure that whatever deal we make, we're the senior partner. Mia grins. So we're going to make Cole's company work for us instead of the other way around. Exactly. He wanted to be CEO, fine. Let him be CEO of our subcontractor. As everyone gets back to work, I sit in our little strip mall office looking out at the parking lot and thinking about how much has changed in just 3 days. Cole thought he was eliminating his competition. Instead, he created his own boss. The board thought they were restructuring for efficiency. Instead, they just handed over control of their most valuable assets to someone they no longer employ. And me, I thought I was starting over from scratch. Instead, I'm about to negotiate the deal of a lifetime. Sometimes the best revenge isn't getting even. Sometimes it's getting ahead. Sometimes the most important conversations happen in the most ordinary places. 3 weeks after Harbor Freight's board made their offer, I'm sitting across from Grace Morrison in her downtown office going through the contract terms line by line. They're offering 70-30 revenue split, Grace says, sliding the documents across her desk. 5-year exclusive partnership. Solutions maintains all client relationships. Harbor Freight provides fulfillment services. I scan through the pages, noting the carefully worded clauses and conditions. What's your read on this? Honestly, it's a good offer, better than I expected them to make, but I think we can do better. How much better? Grace leans back in her chair, steepling her fingers. Well, let's think about this strategically. Harbor Freight is essentially admitting that without you, they don't have a viable business. Their client retention rate has dropped 40% in the 3 weeks since you left. 2 of their biggest accounts have already terminated their contracts. So we're negotiating from a position of strength. Exactly. Which means we can ask for more than just a revenue split. We can ask for equity. I look up from the contract. Equity in Harper Freight. Think about it, Ava. You built the most valuable part of that company. The client relationships, the operational systems, the partnerships that make everything work. Why should you just rent access to their infrastructure when you could own part of the company? It's an intriguing idea, but there's one major complication. Cole would never agree to that. Cole doesn't have a choice. The board controls equity decisions, and right now the board is more concerned about saving the company than protecting Cole's feelings. 2 days later, we're back at the negotiating table. This time, though, I'm not asking for a job. I'm proposing a merger. 75-25 revenue split. I tell Harper Freight's legal team plus 5% equity in Harper Freight Company with the option to increase to 10% based on performance metrics. The lead attorney, a thin man named Robert Fisher, looks uncomfortable. Ms. Harper, I'm not sure the board is prepared to discuss equity arrangements. Then maybe the board isn't prepared to solve their revenue problem, I reply calmly. Solutions has received inquiries from 3 other logistics companies interested in partnership arrangements. If Harper Freight isn't interested in making this work, we have other options. It's a bluff, but not much of one. Word travels fast in the logistics industry, and everyone knows what happened at Harper Freight. I've gotten calls from competitors who would love to poach our client relationships. Grace slides a folder across the table. These are performance projections for the first year of partnership. As you can see, Solutions would be bringing approximately $12 million in annual revenue to this arrangement. Robert studies the numbers for a long moment. I'll need to discuss this with the board. Of course. We'll wait for your response. As we're leaving the Harper Freight building, I notice Cole standing by the elevators. He's clearly been waiting for me. Ava, can we talk? I look at Grace, who nods and heads to her car. I'll be in touch about their response, she says. Cole and I ride the elevator down in silence. It's the first time we've been alone since the day he fired me, and the tension is thick enough to cut with a knife. There's a coffee shop across the street, he says as we reach the lobby. 5 minutes. I check my watch. I have a call with the Louisville warehouse in an hour, but 5 minutes won't hurt. Sure, the coffee shop is one of those generic downtown places with burnt coffee and plastic chairs. Cole orders a black coffee. I get a latte mostly because I need something to do with my hands. We sit at a small table by the window, looking out at the Harper Freight building where we both used to work. For a moment, neither of us speaks. You always needed a safety net, Cole finally says. I look at him surprised. What? When we were kids, remember Dad would take us to the lake and I'd jump right off the dock into the deep water. But you'd always check how deep it was first. You'd look for rocks, test the current, make sure it was safe. I'm not sure where this is going, but I nod. I remember. I used to think it was because you were scared, but sitting in that boardroom 3 weeks ago, watching you calmly pack up your things after I fired you, I realized it wasn't fear. You weren't checking for safety nets because you were scared to jump. You were checking because you're smart enough to have a plan. He takes a sip of his coffee and makes a face. This is terrible coffee. Cole, what are you trying to say? He looks directly at me for the first time since we sat down. I'm saying I underestimated you. I thought I was getting rid of my competition for Dad's approval. I thought I was finally getting the recognition I deserved for my contributions to the company. And now I realize that I was never your competition. I was your front man. You were running the company, and I was just, the face of it, the spokesperson. There's something raw in his voice that I haven't heard before. Vulnerability, maybe. Or just exhaustion. Cole, you're good at what you do. You've always been good with people. Good at networking, good at presenting ideas. But I'm not good at the actual business, the operations, the problem solving, the relationship management. That was all you. I stir my latte, choosing my words carefully. We were a team, Cole. Different strengths, same goal. Were we? Because, looking back, I'm not sure I was much of a team player. This conversation is not going where I expected it to go. I came here prepared for accusations, anger, maybe even threats. I didn't come here prepared for Cole to be honest. Why did you fire me? I ask. He's quiet for a long moment, staring out the window. Because I was tired of being in your shadow. Because every time Dad introduced us to clients, I could see them mentally noting which one of us they'd actually want to work with. Because I wanted to prove that I could run the company without you. And how's that working out? Cole laughs, but there's no humor in it. About as well as you'd expect. We've lost 6 major accounts in 3 weeks. The operations team quit en masse. And now I'm sitting here trying to convince my sister to save the company I destroyed by firing her. You didn't destroy it, Cole. You just reorganized the power structure. Is that what we're calling it? He looks at me directly again. Ava, I need to ask you something and I need you to be honest with me. Okay. Are you doing this for revenge? This whole thing with Solutions, the contract negotiations, the equity demands. Are you trying to burn the company down to get back at me? I set down my coffee cup and really think about his question. Am I doing this for revenge? Is there part of me that wants to see Cole fail? That wants him to understand what it feels like to have your work undervalued and your contributions ignored? Maybe. But that's not the whole story. Cole, do you know what I built at Harper Freight? You built the operations that keep us profitable. I built something bigger than that. I built a system where client problems get solved, where partnerships work because they're based on trust, where people do good work because they care about the results. I built something true. I lean forward, trying to make him understand. When you fired me, you didn't just eliminate a person. You eliminated the institutional knowledge, the relationships, and the systems that made Harper Freight successful. But here's the thing. I didn't burn anything down. I just took my work with me. So this isn't about revenge? This is about building something that works. If that happens to put me in a position where Harper Freight needs me more than I need them, well, that's just good business. Cole nods slowly. And the equity demand? The equity demand is me asking to be recognized as an owner of the value I created, instead of just an employee who gets paid to manage it. We sit in silence for a few minutes, watching people walk by on the street outside. Office workers grabbing coffee, delivery drivers, making rounds, the everyday business of a city that doesn't care about our family drama. The board is going to approve your terms, Cole says finally. How do you know? Because I told them to. I stare at him. What? I went to the board yesterday and told them that if they want to save this company, they need to give you whatever you're asking for. 75-25, split, 5% equity performance bonuses, whatever it takes. Why would you do that? Cole stands up, leaving his barely touched coffee on the table. Because 15 years ago, Dad asked me to help build a family business. And somewhere along the way, I forgot that it was supposed to be about family. He pauses at the edge of our table. For what it's worth, Ava, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for taking credit for your work. I'm sorry for undervaluing your contributions. And I'm really sorry for firing you in front of the entire board instead of having the courage to have this conversation 3 weeks ago. Cole, you don't have to forgive me. You don't even have to like me. But if you'll work with me, I promise I'll do better this time. He walks away before I can respond, leaving me sitting alone with 2 cups of terrible coffee, and the realization that my brother might actually understand what he did wrong. My phone buzzes with a text from Grace. Board approved all terms. They want to sign next week. I look out the window at the Harper Freight building, thinking about equity stakes and revenue splits and the strange turns that life can take. 3 weeks ago, I was an employee getting fired by her brother. Next week, I'll be a partner in the company that fired me with my own business, providing services to the organization I helped build. But more than that, I'll be doing work that matters with people who value that work. I'll be building something true, something that can stand on its own merit. Cole was right about one thing. I've always needed a safety net. But not because I was afraid to jump, because I was smart enough to know that the best time to build a parachute is before you need one. The question now isn't whether this partnership will work. The question is whether Cole and I can figure out how to be siblings again instead of just business associates. But that's a conversation for another day. Right now, I have a company to run and a deal to close. And for the first time in 15 years, I'm doing it on my own terms. 3 months. That's how long it took for everything to change. I'm standing in the main conference room of Solutions' new headquarters, looking out floor-to-ceiling windows at the Chicago skyline. We're on the 15th floor now, with 8,000 square feet of modern office space, custom furniture, and enough room for the 23 employees who've joined our team. The conference room I'm in is called the Johnson Room, named after our first major client. Down the hall, there's the Midwest Room, the Premium Room, and the Great Lakes Room. Each one represents a relationship we've built, a partnership we've earned, and a success we've achieved together. But today, we're celebrating something bigger than any individual client relationship. Today, we just signed the largest contract in Solutions history. Mia walks into the conference room carrying a bottle of champagne and wearing the biggest smile I've seen from her in months. $40 million, she says, setting the bottle on the table. $40 million over 3 years with Continental Retail Group. Continental Retail Group, the third largest retail chain in the United States with distribution centers in 38 states and logistical needs that would make most companies dizzy just thinking about them. How did the signing go? I ask. Jennifer Walsh said, and I quote, "We've been looking for a logistics partner who understands that our business is about more than just moving products. Solutions gets it. You understand that every shipment represents a customer promise, and you treat it that way." I lean against the conference table, trying to process what this means. $40 million. When I started Solutions 6 months ago, in a strip mall office with folding tables, I would have been thrilled with a $40,000 contract. Mia, do you realize what this means? It means we're not a startup anymore. It means we're not just surviving, we're thriving. It means that crazy idea you had about building something true actually worked. Through the conference room windows, I can see the Harper Freight building about 12 blocks away. From here, it looks smaller somehow, less imposing. Just another office building in a city full of them. The partnership with Harper Freight has been working exactly as planned. They handle fulfillment and infrastructure. We handle client relationships and strategic planning. The revenue split has been profitable for both sides, and surprisingly, working with Cole has been manageable. He's kept his word about doing better. He asks questions instead of making assumptions. He gives credit where it's due. He's even started attending our weekly operations meetings to better understand how the business actually runs. It's not the same as it was before. It probably never will be. But it's functional, professional, and based on mutual respect rather than family obligation. My phone buzzes with a text from Jordan. "Board meeting just wrapped. You're going to want to hear this." 20 minutes later, Jordan is sitting across from me in my office, grinning like he just won the lottery. "The Harper Freight Board met this morning to review the quarterly numbers," he says. "The partnership with Solutions has been so successful that they want to make some changes to the arrangement." "What kind of changes?" "The kind where they formally recognize that Solutions is the senior partner in this relationship. They're offering to restructure the entire deal." I set down my coffee cup. "Meaning, what exactly?" "Meaning they want Solutions to acquire a controlling interest in Harper Freight. 51% ownership, full operational control, and the right to restructure management as you see fit." I stare at him. "They want me to buy Harper Freight." "They want you to save Harper Freight. The board has finally admitted what everyone else already knew, that without you, the company doesn't have a sustainable business model." "And Cole?" Jordan's expression becomes more serious. "That's the interesting part. The board is giving Cole a choice. He can accept a subordinate role in the new structure essentially working for you, or he can take a severance package and walk away. I lean back in my chair, trying to wrap my head around this development. 6 months ago, Cole fired me. Now the board is asking me to take over the company and decide whether or not to keep him employed. What's he going to do? I don't know. The board gave him a week to decide. That evening, I'm working late in my office when my assistant Kevin knocks on the door. "Miss Harper, there's someone here to see you. Says it's family business." I look up to see my father, Benjamin Harper, standing in the doorway. I haven't spoken to him since the day after Cole fired me when he called to say he was disappointed in how things were handled, but stopped short of actually taking sides. "Hi, Dad." "Hello, Ava. I was wondering if you might have time for dinner. There are some things we need to discuss." An hour later, we're sitting across from each other at Morton's Steakhouse, the same restaurant where Harper Freight used to celebrate major contract signings. Dad looks older than I remember, more tired, like the stress of the past 6 months has aged him in ways that have nothing to do with time. "I owe you an apology," he says after we've ordered. "Several apologies, actually." I cut a piece of my steak, giving myself time to think about how to respond. "For what? For not stopping Cole from firing you, for not recognizing the value of your contributions over the years, for letting family politics interfere with good business decisions." He pauses, looking uncomfortable, "And for favoring Cole in ways that were unfair to you." "Dad, you don't have to." "Yes, I do. I absolutely do." He leans forward, his voice becoming more intense. "Ava, I've spent the past 6 months watching the company I built fall apart because I let my son fire the person who was actually running it. I've seen what you've accomplished with AH Solutions, and I've seen what Harper Freight looks like without you. The partnership has been working well. The partnership is the only thing keeping Harper Freight alive, and we both know it." Our conversation is interrupted by the waiter bringing wine, giving us both a moment to collect our thoughts. "The board offered you controlling interest in Harper Freight," Dad says after the waiter leaves. "They did? Are you going to take it?" I've been thinking about this question all afternoon. Taking control of Harper Freight would mean coming full circle, going from fired employee to majority owner in 6 months. It would mean having the power to restructure the company according to my vision, to reward the people who do good work and hold accountable those who don't. It would also mean going back to a place that represents a lot of complicated history. "I don't know," I tell him honestly. Solutions is working. We're growing, we're profitable, and we're building something that's genuinely ours. Why would I want to take on the complications of merger and restructuring?" Dad nods slowly. "Because Harper Freight has something that AH Solutions doesn't have yet. Scale, infrastructure, 70 years of brand recognition and industry relationships. And complications, and Cole." "Speaking of Cole," Dad says carefully, "I have a proposition for you." I raise an eyebrow. "What kind of proposition?" "What if you took control of Harper Freight, but instead of pushing Cole out, you brought him back as Chief Marketing Officer? He's good at client relations and business development. You're good at operations and strategic planning. What if you actually became the team you were supposed to be all along?" "Dad, I don't think Cole and I..." "Hear me out. I know there's been a lot of hurt feelings and damaged trust, but I also know that you two work well together when you're not competing for my approval or fighting over who gets credit for what." He takes a sip of his wine before continuing. "I'm 73 years old, Ava. I want to retire knowing that the business I built is in good hands. More than that, I want to retire knowing that my children have figured out how to be partners instead of rivals." What does Cole think about this idea? Cole thinks he screwed up the best professional relationship he ever had, and he'd like a chance to make it right. I sit quietly for a moment, processing this information. Coming back to Harper Freight as CEO would be a vindication of everything I've built over the past 15 years. It would be proof that competence and hard work eventually win out over politics and favoritism. But it would also mean trusting Cole again. It would mean believing that he's learned from the mistakes he made and genuinely wants to work as part of a team. I need to think about it, I tell Dad. Of course, take all the time you need. As we're finishing dinner, Dad reaches across the table and puts his hand over mine. Ava, I want you to know that I'm proud of what you've accomplished. I'm proud of how you handled being fired with dignity and grace. I'm proud of how you built Solutions from nothing into a major player in our industry. And I'm proud that you're my daughter. It's the first time he's said anything like that to me in years, and I feel tears starting to form in my eyes. Thanks, Dad. That means a lot. 2 weeks later, I'm standing in the parking lot outside the Solutions headquarters at 7 p.m., looking up at our sign illuminated against the darkening sky. The decision has been made, the papers have been signed, and the announcement has been sent out to all employees and clients. Solutions has acquired Harper Freight Company in a deal that combines our operational expertise with their infrastructure capabilities. I'm the CEO of the merged entity. Cole is the Chief Marketing Officer. Mia is the Chief Operating Officer. Jordan is the Director of Strategic Partnerships. It's not the ending I expected when Cole fired me 6 months ago. But then again, nothing about this story has gone the way I expected. My phone buzzes with a text from Cole. Thank you for giving me another chance. I won't waste it. I look up at the Solutions sign one more time, thinking about everything that led to this moment. The years of being overlooked, the betrayal of being fired, the fear of starting over, the satisfaction of proving everyone wrong. But mostly, I think about something my attorney Grace said during the final contract negotiations. Sometimes the best revenge isn't getting even. Sometimes it's getting everything you wanted in the first place. I'm not the same person who walked out of that Harper Freight boardroom 6 months ago. That person was an employee hoping for recognition, depending on others to validate her worth, waiting for permission to be great. The person standing in this parking lot owns her own success, controls her own destiny, and doesn't need anyone's permission to do excellent work. Cole's betrayal broke something in me, but it also built something stronger. It forced me to stop waiting for other people to recognize my value and start creating value that couldn't be ignored. It taught me that the best safety net isn't a backup plan. It's the confidence that comes from knowing you can build something from nothing, if you have to. But here's what I didn't expect to learn. Sometimes the people who hurt you can also be the people who help you become who you're supposed to be. Not because they meant to, but because they forced you to find strength you didn't know you had. Cole and I will probably never have the relationship we had when we were kids. Too much has happened. Too much. Trust has been broken and rebuilt. But maybe we can have something better. A partnership based on mutual respect instead of family obligation, on professional competence instead of personal history. As I get in my car to drive home, I think about the conversation Cole and I had in that terrible coffee shop 3 months ago. He said I always needed a safety net, and he was right. But what he didn't understand then, and what I'm just beginning to understand now, is that the best safety net isn't something you build for protection. It's something you build for freedom. Betrayal made me strong. But family, the complicated, messy, imperfect family that drives you crazy and lifts you up in equal measure, that might just be my final frontier. And honestly, I'm ready to explore it. Sometimes the best revenge is just being undeniably successful. If you enjoyed this story of family drama and business comebacks, hit that subscribe button for more real-life stories that prove truth really is stranger than fiction. What would you have done in my situation? Let me know in the comments below.